Hello and welcome learners to yet another stimulating and interesting lesson of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University. Today we are going to consider employee engagement and retention strategies. This is being offered as part of MBA program first year second semester. This is also from the block 4 reward management and employee management. So let's get started with employee engagement and retention strategies. So I have a few questions. I generally want you to think over these questions. The first and the foremost question that I have before you while we dwell upon this interesting idea of employee engagement and retention strategy is, why do high paid employees still quit? Did you ever get this thought? Or did you believe that high employees never quit? Well, the data says something different. You can think about it. The other question that I have for you is, why do some employees stay despite lower pay? This is the extreme diagonally opposite view of the first question, that although they are paid less, but most of the employees still like to hang around in the same organization. What is the reason behind that? The third and the foremost question that I have for you is, can engagement exist without retention? This is a $1,000,000 question, because can we really going to have engagement and then also be able to retain employees? That may not be possible. Well, intuitively saying it may not be possible, you may have a different view. You can always get back to us and comment on our YouTube channel about this question. The fourth question, the food for thought for this lesson is, why do people leave managers, not companies? This is quite common, isn't it? There is this trend that I have not left my job, but I have left the manager. The job was good, the organization was good, my person and job fit was good, person organization fit was good, but I was not able to gel well with the managers. So why does it happen? While you think and have the brain racking activities, we will show you the roadmap of this session. Well, we will look into the meaning and the differences of employee engagement and retention strategies. We will also take you through the why employees disengage and leave or quit the organization. We will also have engagement and retention drives. How do we keep the flock together and do not allow them to go, because the cost of leaving the organization would be really pretty high. And the strategies that we will try and look into, and we will provide you a few examples as such. And there may be one or two mini cases. We will look from the strategic point of view, and then we will wrap up. This is what I have for you, and let me dish out the details before you. So why engagement and retention matter? Why does it really matter to the employees, and more so with the organizations? So from the organizational point of view, if you look at it, it largely have the attrition cost. Attrition is nothing but the rate at which the employees leaving the organization. It might go from 1 to 2x, basically twice the amount of your annual salary. That means if you don't retain your employees, you end up paying more for repeating the recruitment cycle. And that is the need of the art to retain, and that is why it's important. And then the loss of tacit knowledge. One employee who's working for a longer period, maybe for 30 long years, and suddenly he or she quits. And then what about the person's tacit knowledge? Tacit knowledge is not just the knowledge that you have with the organization. This is a very specific knowledge that you generally have with the organization employee, and that will be a great loss to the organization. Don't you think so? And the impact of the morale and the customers. So the impact that you're going to create because of not retaining the employees who were able to cater to the needs of the customers, that confidence and morale and customer base will also get lost into it. So it will also going to damage the employer branding and the employer image. So organizations do enjoy some reputation which is the talk of the town sometimes. People are talking about it, people are engaging into it. Word of mouth is important, and hence it's important that they have to do the damage control, or they should increase the visibility of the employer in the eyes of the others as such, mostly the stakeholders. And that is why IT firms in India face high early attrition despite good pay. You may be wondering, IT employees are paid more than the other sectors, but they still keep on hopping from one place to the other. So what is employee engagement? Let's put our thoughts together to understand this concept, and this concept is going to help all of us. The first and the foremost thing, it's the emotional commitment to work. Employees' emotional investment into the work, involvement into it. So the ability to get involved into the work psychologically, emotionally, sentimentally is nothing but employee engagement. And it is also willing to give those extra efforts in the organization. If I am engaged and I would go that extra mile to complete any task, be it difficult, be it a complex task, all that is going to matter a lot. And then there is also a psychological association to the goals. If I want to achieve something and if I have high level of self-efficacy, then probably I may be able to achieve those goals quite conveniently than the others, and that's the reason. If you look at engagement, and that's a fantastic formula, is equal to energy plus involvement. So if you have the high amount of energy and then your involvement, they go together. So overall, if you look at the example of it, I can tell you very precisely that engaged employee proactively solve the problems without being told. You don't have to tell them. They are the ones, they are the forerunners, front runners of solving the problems. And imagine that you have a bunch of these employees. Your organization will go up, your productivity will go up, and you don't really have to be behind them. That's a wonderful idea and thought to have engagement. So why employee retention is important? Let's focus on the retention part. Retention is nothing but the ability to retain over a period of time. The talent should be retained. Because with great difficulty, you have conducted the selection process, you have done recruitment, selection, onboarding, and performance, and suddenly employee leaves the organization. That's not a great idea. So it's the ability that you're going to retain the employee is nothing but the employee retention. And the focus is purely on the voluntary turnover. The turnover is the number of employees left the organization in the previous year. So that you have to literally reduce it. Attrition, turnover, layoffs, retrenchment, these are the terms you generally come across, isn't that? And then the outcome of engagement should be part of the culture. So basically, if you are able to engage your employees properly, then you are creating a culture of respecting the employees. And that culture will go a long way in taking care of loyalty and job satisfaction as such. So retention reflects the employee trust. Trust is not built in a day. As they say, Rome is not built in a day. Similarly, that the trust is so important part of it. So trust is very, very crucial part of employee engagement. You're basically investing into the employee engagement to reap the benefits of the trust. So take the example that employees staying 8 to 10 years in the Tata Group. Tata Group has one of the finest, retention strategies in place. And we will also try to compare the employee engagement and employee retention strategies. Let's look at more deeply into it. First and the foremost thing, engagement will always lead to performance and passion. The passion with which people get involved, the intrinsic motivation that they have to accomplish a task will go a long way. And whereas retention is about the long-term association, the longevity of the association with the organization. So both are necessary, they go together. And people can stay but feel disengaged. So I am working in the organization for past 10 years, but I am also disengaged. What is the benefit of it? There is no benefit that the organization can draw from it. So it's important that you engage the employees, and as part and the result of that engagement, you are in a position to have the retention. Isn't that true? So one leads to the other, both are necessary. In fact, engagement is always necessary more than the retention part of it. So engaged employees choose to stay because they find meaningfulness in the work, task significance, the task identity, and they have a lot of autonomy of the work, and that's the reason. So take this example of PSU employees. They have high retention but low engagement sometimes. Isn't that true? So I'm just trying to give you these examples so that you can imagine, think about it, and maybe when you look up for these research reports, newspaper reports, or within your own organization, you can really understand it. So what is the cost of engagement? The cost of engagement is basically you have to keep in mind to reduce the productivity. If you are not in a position to engage properly, that will show results in the productivity. The productivity will come down. So the cost of disengagement is precisely reducing the productivity. Productivity will go down if you're not able to do so. So that's a concern for anybody, any supervisor, any manager, any organization. At the end of it, the result's going to matter a lot, and more errors, mistakes, complaints, and defects can pop up, and that's not a good sign. And then you may have the silent quitting behavior. Silent quitting, that I have not put down the papers, I have not put down anything, but I am basically not involved into the work. That's where the silent quitting can happen. And it will also lead to higher turnover intention. The intention to leave is very high. That means I'm searching for the jobs, but I'm not engaged in this organization. I may or may not quit, but as of now, I have mentally put down papers. I have mentally retired from the work. That is the problem and the cost of disengagement. Look at this example. Doing only what is written in the job description is not a great deal. If there are some 2, 3, 4 items written in my job description and I'm only performing it, but where is the engagement? Where am I actually leading to? And what is my real contribution to the job? And because I am not engaged, it is not going to help much. So why employees disengage? Let us look at deeply psychologically and try to address these issues. Some of them are very quite popular, and these factors you may have come across. The first and the foremost thing that you generally look into is the micromanagement. People really get disengaged because they are doing subtasks, so many subtasks, and too many micromanagement issues. Micromanagement issues can actually going to disengage employees, and there are no growth opportunities. Hardly there is any promotional or learning environment that is provided. Hence, employees also keep withdrawing from the work as such. And then the lack of recognition. I've been doing work for the last 10 years and nobody even recognized me. So that is also going to lead to a long way. This is a very psychologically important thing. People should appreciate, and others should appreciate, organizations should appreciate employees who are contributing to the growth of the organization. And then poor manager behavior. Managers are chiefly responsible for keeping not just the flock together, but also on daily basis they should be able to motivate the employees. And if the manager behavior is done in a poor light, it will reflect on the employees as such. So take a mini case just to look at. Startup has this burnout due to unrealistic deadlines. So if the startup want to achieve growth in the lesser time, and they have put a lot of pressure on the people, and that will result into the burnout. So which is not a good sign. This is not engagement as such. What are the key drivers of engagement? There are quite a few drivers of engagement. And now that we have spoken about the cost of disengagement and also how disengagement actually manifested into the organizations, then we will look into the key drivers of engagement. The first and the foremost thing is to provide meaningfulness. Meaningfulness is so important because 1/3 of our life we work for the organization, for the betterment of the organization, and hence it's the responsibility of the organization to provide a lot of meaningfulness. The other one is to give recognition. Appreciation, recognition would go a long way more than the monetary part. These are the non-financial, non-monetary part and will make a huge difference. As far as possible, provide them the growth and learning opportunities, and that will be really, really helpful. And then the leadership should put their trust into the employees. So the top management is generally going to decide the fate of the others because people tend to follow the top leadership in the organization, and then link the entire thing with the fair rewards. Based on the worth of the job, based on the relative worth and the meaningfulness of the work, you should be able to provide them the right rewards because people do believe in equity and you need to achieve internal and external equity as such. So startup offering learning plus autonomy will actually going to outperform the large firms. That's why some of the young graduates would like to join the startup. One is that they have passion to change it. The other one is they are also being willing to get totally engaged. So in one of the questions that I have asked you about the manager roles, isn't it? Because the managers are the reasons for some employees to quit the organization. So we cannot discount the role of the manager in the engagement. So what is the role of the manager? The role of the manager is precisely to set the daily work climate and culture. Because you are meeting the manager every day, your work is assigned by him and you have to report, and he is also supervising or she is also being able to give commands to your work. So they have to set those daily tasks, routine tasks, mundane tasks, and create a culture and climate of working conditions. The other one is to provide clarity and feedback. Sometimes the work is not really clear to you. So providing clarity, seeking feedback for the previous work and the task will actually going to help. So manager's duty is to provide the task and the feedback. The third one is to support the development. So overall, if an employee has joined the organization today and working for the last 2-3 years, and he should be elevated and promoted, and that is also the duty of the manager to recognize and provide the developmental learning growth and opportunities at large. And the manager should also build this psychological safety. Psychological safety is nothing but the ability to provide all kinds of emotional and psychological support to the employees and the members to which that he is heading. And 70%, according to one statistic, 70% of engagement variance linked to managers. Basically, so out of 100, 70% of the employees believe that it is the manager's ability to have engagement with the employees. So few of the theoretical foundations that are also linked to it, because when we are talking about employee engagement and retention strategies, there are a lot of motivational theories that we have. One of the theories that you can think of is the Maslow's theory. Abraham Maslow in 1951, he proposed this theory of hierarchical needs, and according to him, the needs actually travel from the lower needs to the higher needs. Like the unmet needs will actually going to reduce the motivation, and that is why it's important to recognize that. Herzberg two-factor theory, hygiene versus motivators, and Herzberg plays salary in the hygiene factor, not in the motivators, like satisfaction versus dissatisfaction. If you don't have hygiene factors, it leads to dissatisfaction, but if you have motivators, it leads to satisfaction. That's the idea propounded by Herzberg. We also have social exchange theory, which is crucial in taking care of the engagement and retention part, because the social exchange believe that we are trying to exchange not just information and work and contribution, but in return we are going to get rewards. So that's the social exchange theory that we have for you. The other interesting theory as far as this area and topic is concerned is the job characteristic model. We will look at each one of them in detail. The job characteristic model is also a motivational part and helps us to take care of it. So we explain each and every engagement part and how does that work in terms of the strategies and so on. I was telling you about the JCM, the job characteristic model. The job characteristic model has 5 dimensions to it, and task identity, task significance, and you also have autonomy and feedback. Look at this one. If you have so much of autonomy, so much of independence and freedom in your work, probably you own that work, and that is brilliant. And see how one dimension of the job characteristic model is helping you to become an ownership in the organization. And that's a very, very logical conclusion that you have. The other interesting idea is the task significance, because task significance will give you the meaning. If you are in the manufacturing of the cars, so where do these cars actually go? These are for the public transportation. These are for the public to commute from one place to other. That provides you a lot of meaning. Isn't that true? And then the feedback. So if take the example of the car again, and if you are manufacturing cars, and then the customers have given you the feedback that the chassis or the brakes or the accelerator are not really that smooth, but that will come back to you, and you being the designer, you being into operations, you will like to improve those things and achieve the customer satisfaction. And there is also another example in terms of doctors. So doctors with decision autonomy show higher engagement. So if hospitals recruit doctors, and doctors basically allowed to exercise their individual autonomy and freedom, probably they feel they are more respected and appreciated, and they get more engaged into it. So what is the modern view of the employee experience if you look at it? Engagement basically across employee life cycle, right from the birth or the moment the employee joined the organization and reaches to the growth and to the peak, and then there is a downflow. Like we have the product life cycle, we similarly have the employee life cycle as such. So onboarding to exit experience can also be an important part. The way that you welcome, make them feel at ease, make them feel at home, to the moment that some employees trying to leave, you can conduct the exit interview as such. And that is precisely very important. And individualization to personalization going to go a long way in engagement, because each individual employee needs are different, and addressing these needs will go a long way. And there is always, if you provide ears to the people who are putting grievances or telling you or giving you feedback, so continuous listening is also an important idea. So one of the examples that I can think of at this point in time is Infosys, a Lex learning platform where it allows employee to get good experience and so on. So what is a fundamental reason why employees leave the organization? There are a bunch of reasons. A few of the reasons is that the top management, the leadership is not good. The top management doesn't care, and hence people quit, they understand it. And career stagnation, you have come to the career plateau where there is no upper growth. You have reached to the peak, and after that there is nothing for you. So people also jump and leave the organization. And work-life imbalance, because you're not able to match the domestic needs and also not able to do justice to the work. That's not a good idea, hence they quit. And then pay inequity, because pay, if you're not giving them at par with the other competitors, people generally quit the organization. Exit interview, can actually give you a lot of insight, especially I don't see my future here if they write that. So you missed an opportunity to retain the employee. So what are the different types of turnovers that you have? Voluntary versus involuntary. People are voluntary resigning it, people are not involuntary resigning it. Basically, voluntary and involuntary are the two kinds of turnovers that you have. Functional and dysfunctional. Functional could be positive, but dysfunctional, like quite quitting, is dysfunctional in that sense. And early stage attrition, you have just completed an onboarding process, you've just joined, completed an induction orientation program, and by the time your career started, you started to think of quitting. That's not a good sign. So losing top performers is basically a dysfunctional turnover. That's not a good part. Some of the strategies that you can think of providing, one is the meaningfulness of the work, giving them the clear role, purpose, and also linking the work to the impact that they are going to create. So if you're working in a car manufacturing, so you can think about these cars will go out in the public and they will provide good transportation or meaningfulness. That's why it's important. So job enrichment is also the case. You can even take the example of NGOs. NGOs retain talent through purpose but not pay. Although the pay is quite low compared to the corporate, but NGO employees do stick to them because they are providing meaningfulness. The other one, apart from meaningfulness, you can also provide them the recognition. Timely appreciation, recognition of these employees are crucial, and they can also come through non-monetary things. The employee of the month, public praise wherever it's possible is another thing. You can also provide learning and growth opportunities, skill development, training and development, mentoring and coaching, and internal mobility. Job rotation can also be part of that learning and growth. So Amazon basically helps its employees to upskill and reduce the attrition. So what are the retention strategies that you can think of as far as the career paths are concerned? Providing transparent promotion. The policies are laid in such a way that these promotions are visible and they could clearly see that what is there for them in the next short-term, long-term thing. The other interesting area is to also design the individual development plan rather than having a mass plan or at the group level, because at the group level you may not have insights of the individuals, and then the role rotations would also go a long way. So management trainee programs in FMCG firms are the examples of it. And most importantly, the work-life balance. Work-life balance can have flexibility of the work, because if you have children studying, you have to go and pick them up, probably the 9 to 5 job may not be suitable for you. And then you can also manage the workload. You can even have, because work can also put you into the risk, hazards, and maybe the health can get deteriorated. So wellness programs can also come a long way. So hybrid work modes, and especially post-COVID, we have seen they are happening. Compensation and fairness would go a long way, because market aligned payment are the reason for it, and that is also going to provide internal equity and so on. So pay dissatisfaction despite high salary is probably due to inequity and so on. You can even create the role of organizational culture. You can create a culture of trust, fairness, inclusion, ethical leadership, and so on. Always be grounded and listen to the employee voice, because they are the ones who are going to tell you a lot about it. You can even do some checks and measures by measuring the engagement. Absenteeism, one of the ratios that you can think about, because it is going to lead to all that. So you can even measure the attrition, especially the retention part, through attrition rate, early turnover, and all the losses that you have been able to made it. So Google is one big example how they are able to provide trust, autonomy, and so on. And Indian IT firms are also learning from the multinational corporations. And as far as possible, avoid the common mistakes, and then you can have an integrated model and so on. So let's conclude today's session what we have learned so far and wrap up for the day is that engagement basically drives motivation. Engagement leads to retention, and managers are the key influencers in the organizations, and you can create a culture because culture go beyond the boundaries of the organization and they will become more important than the policy. So the final word would be listen, act and sustain. That is where you're going to have the greater employee engagement and retention. That's all we have for you in this edition of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University Education at your doorstep. Until we meet next time, it's goodbye from all of us from the studios. Bye-bye and do take care of yourself.